Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So this Hurricane Milton, bearing in on the Florida coast as we speak, and man, I don't think there's ever been a hurricane quite as crazy, quite as intense. I mean, people are talking about Category 6. In fact, a friend just texted me yesterday, and it was a link, and they said it may be the first Category 6 hurricane. And I thought, hey, I didn't even know they had a Category 6, so I Googled it, and of course, there is no official Category 6, and that really does bring up the question, should there be a Category 6 added? And an AccuWeather expert actually weighed in on this, so I want to show y'all this clip. Y'all check it out.
So a critical situation, I called it, I'd seen some reports where this has been called a potential once-in-a-century hit. Can you contextualize how bad this storm might be? Is it actually a once-in-a-century hit?
Yeah, I mean, Tampa Bay has not seen a hit from a Category 3 or greater hurricane in around 100 years. It's been about 100 years since this area was directly hit by a major hurricane. So it's been a very long time. And back in the early 1900s, the population of this area was much, much less than it is right now. There's been a significant population boom across the coasts of Florida, and that's both East Coast and West Coast in the last 100 years. So there's a lot of infrastructure, a lot of people. There's a lot of people in this area that have never been through a hurricane that has directly hit, because we've seen a couple of near misses. We saw Ian move to the south. We've seen several storms skirt the coast, but we've never seen, at least in around 100 years, a major hurricane directly impacting the Tampa-St. Pete area.
Now, about 24 hours ago, when the storm was really gaining speed, it was a Category 5. It slipped to a Category 4, but you say it might go back to a Category 5. We ran a story on Forbes.com earlier today about, do we need a Category 6? It's a little bit, it involves some imagination, but given the severity of storms you've seen this season, Alex, do we need to add categories to?
Okay, now before they answer that, because that's a super important question, but I just think it's absolutely insane what he was saying a second ago about how people in this side of Florida may never have seen a hurricane of this magnitude hit them. That's absolutely insane. This hurricane is, I'm telling you, it's unlike any other hurricane we've seen in 100 years. Okay, so should there be a Category 6? Let's see what they say.
To our hurricane system?
I really don't think so. I think the messaging, once you get to that Category 5 threshold, it's pretty much catastrophic damage, going on from there. The winds for a Category 5 hurricane are sustained over 155 miles per hour. And anything above that will pretty much destroy anything in its path. So I don't think we need a Category 6 necessarily, but we definitely do have to work on getting the messaging out there about how dangerous these storms can be. And the fact that we've been seeing much more rapid intensification, it seems like, over the last couple of years, a lot of it has to do with these sea surface temperatures. I think there's a tie certainly to a warming planet with that. I mean, you can see here the sea surface temperatures everywhere on this map, mid-80s. You need about 80 degrees to have a tropical system survive and thrive, and we're about 4 to 6 degrees above that threshold. And so the last couple of years, we've been seeing a lot more systems rapidly intensify. I'm worried that this could be a trend as we move into the future.
Okay, so that's a big question, guys, because of course we're saying that this is a hurricane maybe we haven't seen in 100 years. You saw there's no need for a Category 6 because a Category 5 completely destroys everything, and the category system's based on the level of destruction. Category 5 is complete, 100% destruction. So that's why I'm saying we don't need Category 6 because, I mean, it doesn't matter. If it completely destroys, doesn't matter if it was 180 or 190, 200 mile an hour winds, doesn't matter at that point. Everything was destroyed. So Category 5 is as bad as it can get. You think about it, these homeowners and the people that are impacted by the storm, losing everything is as bad as it can get. So there's no need for a Category 6, and that makes total sense. But then he talks about the oceans warming, and that's the purpose, that's the reason for these hurricanes. Do y'all really think that that's it? Do y'all buy that? I know there's a lot of people that are saying, hey, the global climate change is maybe overplayed made, and people are like leaning into that, and maybe even the political parties are using it for their advantage. What do y'all think about that? Leave it down in the comments, guys. Let me know. Okay, now we've got the same AccuWeather expert, and he's saying that it's probably going to be a Category 3 when it hits Florida, maybe Category 4. Let's check in and look at this most recent update.
Hurricane Milton is barreling towards Tampa Bay in what could be a once-in-a-century hit for the city. Joining us now to explain how the storm is developing is Alex De Silva. He is AccuWeather's lead hurricane expert. Alex, thanks so much for coming back.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, give us the latest. What is the storm doing right now?
Yeah, well, right now, Milton's actually strengthening up a little bit. The hurricane hunters flying around in the storm, and they found that the storm has strengthened right back up a little bit. We're right on the verge of Category 5 strength right now. But, you know, fluctuations, I think, are going to be happening here in the next 24 hours. So it might go up to Cat 5, might come down. So this is completely normal. The storm underwent an eyewall replacement cycle yesterday. And so the wind speeds did come down a little bit, but the size of the storm increased, and so the wind field expanded. That's completely normal in these eyewall replacement cycles that these really strong hurricanes undergo. It's something they just kind of have to undergo for the dynamical processes within the storms. Essentially, an outer eyewall forms, and then it compresses onto the inner eyewall and takes over. But then the wind field expands. So the storm is much larger right now than we were dealing with about 24 hours ago.
So the storm is larger. What does that mean for the path and also where it will make landfall? How much has that changed over the last 24 hours?
Yeah, we'll start with the path. So not much has changed here over the last 24 hours. You can see the path here. We're still expecting a Category 3 hurricane to make landfall somewhere around the Tampa Bay area. Might be just south of Tampa Bay, might be a little bit further north, but overall closing in on that Tampa Bay area Thursday Eastern time at 2 a.m. Again, that is early Thursday morning. 2 a.m. Eastern time is the time we're expecting landfall as a dangerous Category 3 hurricane. Now, it's going to be growing in size, and so we're going to see the wind field expand. So look down here. You can see how compact the winds are. It's still a relatively small storm, maybe a little smaller than average, but then once it gets up here towards Florida, the wind field is going to expand. It might undergo another one of those eyewall replacement cycles, and so that's another way the wind field can expand, as well as it's going to interact with a dip in the jet stream coming through like that, and that will also help to expand the wind field and also kind of the rain field as well. We're expecting widespread 8 to 12 inches of rain everywhere, Cape Coral, Tampa, Orlando, all the way up to Jackson.
And that may be the biggest issue, guys, is the rain. Y'all see the flooding that happened with Helene. And I also, while he's talking, I pull up the hurricane wind scale. Look at this Category 3, guys. Even if it hits, it could be hit either as Category 3 or Category 4 hurricane. Look at what Category 3 is, and this is from the official National Weather Service. This is what a Category 3 hurricane does. And this is, quote, some structural damage to small residences and utility buildings with minor amount of wall failures. Mobile homes destroyed. Many trees uprooted or snapped. Power outages lasting several days or weeks. Guys, that's the best case scenario right now for this hurricane as it is coming in on the Tampa area. That's crazy. Look at this, Category 4, some wall failures with complete house roof structure failures. Extensive damage to doors, windows, trees. Electricity unavailable for weeks. That is what Florida is facing today, guys. That's about to happen in just a few hours. This is insane.
Very, very heavy rainfall.
Let's dig into that rainfall. So you said 8 to 12 inches in Tampa and Cape Coral. What about the areas outside those towns?
Yeah, down here, down across the southern portion, we might get a little bit of dry air. So actually, a lot of the rain actually might come today and early tomorrow, kind of precursor ahead of the storm. We will still get some rain bands down across southern Florida, but there might actually be a little bit of dry air that mixes in as the storm is making landfall. But I think the hardest hit areas are going to be in this corridor here, just north of where the storm makes landfall. Man. This is the area, I think, that has the best chance to see a foot of rain or even more. What typically happens happens with these tropical systems when they interact with a dip in the jet stream, a lot of the precipitation ends up on the north and northwest side of the storm. And so if the storm is moving in towards Tampa and then, maybe it's near Orlando or just south, you look to the areas north and west for the heaviest rain. And so that's why I'm thinking a corridor, Tampa, Orlando, Daytona, up to Jacksonville. These are the areas I think circled there where we have the best shot of seeing a foot of rain or even more.
All right, guys, and I just pulled it up on my phone here just to look at what the most recent update is. Right now, it's still a Category 4 storm, and they're projecting it's going to be Category 3 when it hits. But, guys, it is developed. I mean, just look at that. That is insane. You don't want to see that when you're pulling up your phone looking at the radar. Imagine you're sitting in Tampa and sitting in Sarasota. Like, guys, let's keep these people in our prayers. If you're from the area, guys, I hope y'all got out safely because, my goodness, this storm looks absolutely insane. And we just hope and pray everyone is going to be okay. All right, guys, we're going to shift a little bit over now because I want to talk a little bit about J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance just torched Kamala Harris's answers during her interview on The View. Did y'all watch her interview on The View? All right, J.D. Vance is talking at a Michigan event yesterday, and he says, quote, that Kamala has a record to be ashamed of. I'm going to show you that clip now.
Now, I don't know if y'all saw this, but I guess this morning Kamala Harris had an interview with The View. Wait a second. I am shocked that we don't have a whole lot of The View watchers here in the Motor City. Sir, you don't watch Kamala Harris on The View? No? Well, I do the job sometimes that you folks don't want to. I actually watched Kamala Harris's interview on The View. Now, I got to tell you, to go into The View as a Democrat politician, that's like the easiest interview in the entire world, right? I mean, if I walked into The View, that'd be like walking into this room with an Ohio State jersey, right? That's something you just don't do. But she walks into The View, and you would think that would be an interview, and you know what they asked her? They gave her a softball, an easy question, really propaganda. They said, can you name a single thing where you disagree with Joe Biden? Now, let's back up for a second, because remember, Kamala Harris's entire campaign is to pretend that she hasn't been the vice president for the last 3.5 years.
That's a good point.
You know, she stands up before crowds and she'll say, on day one, we're going to tackle the affordability crisis. On day one, we're going to secure the border. And you listen to her for 5 minutes and you think, Kamala, are you going to vote for Donald Trump? Because you've been vice president for 1,400 days. You haven't done anything. So you'd think after all this time of thinking about how she would do things differently from Joe Biden, she would have a well-prepared answer for the interviewers on The View. Well, they ask her one thing you would do differently from Joe Biden. You know what she says? I can't really think of anything off the top of my head.
That's politician for you.
Now, in her defense, I'm not sure she could think of anything off the top of her head, whether about Joe Biden's policies or anything else, but think about this. For the last 2 months, Kamala Harris has been telling the American people that she's going to do things differently than Joe Biden, where she increased the cost of groceries by 25%. The average Michigan family is paying $1,000 more per month. That's $12,000 per year to afford today what they could have afforded when Donald Trump was president. The border is wide open thanks to our illustrious border czar, Kamala Harris, and her entire campaign has been to pretend that she doesn't bear any responsibility for the policies, even though she's the sitting vice president. And here's the difference between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. There are so many of them. But the big difference is that Donald Trump has a record to be proud of, and Kamala Harris has a record to be ashamed of.
Wow, guys. Okay, so and I have to say, first of all, J.D. Vance has grown on me. When Donald Trump first elected him, I was like, I didn't see it. I didn't see it. He came across as maybe a little bit unlikable, a little bit stiff. I didn't think he was going to be able to win over the American people. I think he's come a long way in the last few weeks. And what he's saying here is exactly it. And that's crazy, guys. If you watch The View, leave a comment down below. If you watched that interview with Kamala, let me know what you thought about it. But that's got to be like the most pointed question from The View, right? Like they're asking Kamala, is there anything that you would distance yourself, that you would separate yourself from Biden on? Is there any? This is her opportunity. But you see, she's still stuck, guys. She's been stuck the last 4 years. I don't want to see what an unleashed Kamala does, but she's still under Biden. She still works. Biden is her boss right now. Biden's the one that selected her, right? We can't forget this. But Biden's been delegating all these tasks to her. And so she's trying to pretend, again, like she hasn't been able to do anything. No, she's been afraid to do anything. Maybe she's been unwilling to do anything. Maybe she really does align perfectly with Biden. Maybe she doesn't have any of her own thoughts. Maybe she's just a puppet. Maybe she's just speaking the words that other people are telling her. I don't know. What do you guys think? All right, check this out. J.D. Vance responding to a reporter that is pressing him on claims about migrant funding. And this is at the same rally. He says, quote, "Here's the evidence. Y'all check it out."
Thank you, Senator. Historian with CBS News. You said in an interview with Newsmax yesterday that FEMA was...
Isn't that crazy? Did you hear the crowds booing? Like, man, these people, guys, like, the media is being held accountable maybe for the first time ever, maybe in American history. And maybe that's because they're just diverging. All right, let's continue listening.
Disaster relief is being used to fund to focus on migrants, rather. Donald Trump also said on Truth Social that most, if not all, of the money that FEMA spent is on migrants. FEMA officials say that's just not true. What evidence do you guys have to suggest that?
So here's the evidence. And by the way, I just want to make an observation about these reporters, and I appreciate the question. Is, you know, when people say that they feel endangered by a crowd voicing their opinion, well, look, my friends, the First Amendment goes in both directions, and so you haven't made this criticism, to be clear, but. Wow. But I read some article. It was in I forget who published it, but they were like, well, journalists don't feel safe at some of our events. Look, not a single person here is going to harm you. They're just going to speak their mind, and they have every right to do it. So God bless you guys. The First Amendment, we believe in it in this country.
Wow.
But sir, my point is about the focus of our current administration. And if you use resources, but most importantly, if you put people on the task of dealing, let's say, with a massive influx of illegal immigration, then they're going to be distracted from doing their core job of keeping Americans safe in response to a disaster. Each of us, this is true of me, it's true of everybody in the world, we only got so much time to focus, and there's only so much time in the day. And if you take FEMA and you turn it into an agency that resettles illegal immigrants, that's going to take their focus away from keeping people safe after a hurricane. That's basic human reality. And I think there's no way around it. Now, what the fact checkers say, and we'll sort of, we'll try to be as fair to the other side as possible, my friends. What the fact checkers will say is, well, there's a bucket of money that goes to illegal immigrants, and that's a different bucket of money that goes to disaster relief. Well, I'm sure the Biden administration has never moved money from one bucket to the other. In 3.5 years...
That's intense.
In 3.5 years, we know that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are more than willing to move money from one bucket to another if it suits their purpose. They ought to be moving money to the bucket that supports American citizens in the wake of these terrible storms. That's what I would like them to do. But the final point I want to make about this is just bureaucratic focus. Look, I've seen a lot of wild stuff out there on the internet. The problem with what I've seen from the Biden administration is that they're not focused on getting resources to people that need it. When Kamala Harris is out at a fundraiser in San Francisco, meanwhile North Carolina is drowning, North Carolinians have every right to say, where the hell is our vice president and why isn't she focused on us? That focus has got to change. The 82nd Airborne. And this is in 2010. You're never going to hear me praise Barack Obama. You rarely hear me praise Barack Obama. But in 2010, there was a terrible earthquake in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. A ton of people lost their lives. A ton of people had their livelihoods destroyed. The 82nd Airborne was in Port-au-Prince, Haiti under Barack Obama 48 hours later. North Carolina is an hour away from the 82nd Airborne's headquarters. Why did it take a week to get the 82nd Airborne on the ground helping American citizens? It's disgraceful.
I'll tell you why, guys, because this administration is incompetent. We have seen it over and over and over and over again. Biden is not in shape right now to run the country, and so he's deferred it over to Kamala. Kamala's trying to run the country as a vice president, but funnel it all under Biden and also keep herself distanced and clean so that she can win the presidency in November. Wow. And I love that point he made. Like, can we not move it from one okay, we got two buckets. One of them is for the border, is for the immigrants, and then we've got another bucket, not immigrants, migrants. Illegal immigrants, right? And then we've got another bucket over here for hurricane disaster relief. And they're going to step back and say, "Oh, well, we can't do that. We can't move it over. We got to help the people that shouldn't be here in the first place before we can help you, where your family has been here for your whole lifetime. You're being wiped away by a hurricane. Oh, but we don't have enough money. We don't have enough money. Oh, we got plenty of money over here." Absolutely insanity. That's the level of just incompetency we are facing as a country. And I love how he said, hey, you know what? Democrats don't just make bad decisions. Every once in a while, they do something good. Look at Obama. He had people there so quick. And yet this administration can't do anything right. All right. Switching it up a little bit. During a press briefing on Tuesday, the State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller was asked about U.S. support for Israel and Ukraine. Talking about money, guys. The reporter kind of exploded. Y'all check it out.
So Israel is still poised to strike Iran. And in July, Blinken said that Iran was 1 to 2 weeks away from developing a nuclear weapon. So I guess for all we know, they might have one by now. And meanwhile, in Ukraine, they've struck deep within Russian territory several times, as deep as 300 miles from the border. And in that case, we don't have to guess. We know that Russia has the largest nuclear arsenal on the planet, as many as 6,000 warheads. And so one of the risks of arming militaries that are striking in the territories of nuclear powers is that one of those gets deployed, and then it could escalate very quickly from there. So it's rarely discussed, but it's important to address that the nuclear risk is real, and it could very abruptly mean the end of what humans have worked for thousands of years to collectively achieve. And us today are very lucky to live with the fruits of that achievement, and I feel like we're treating the risks kind of brazenly. So my question for you is, we often hear in response to these concerns that, well, Putin, Khomeini, they're war criminals, they're terrorists, as if they're too inherently evil or immoral for us to negotiate with. But meanwhile, this administration has financed a genocide in Gaza for the last year, and every day you're up there denying accountability for it. So, what gives you the right to lecture other countries on their moral?
So, if you have a policy question for me, I'm happy to take it. If you want to give a speech, there are plenty of places in Washington where you can give a speech.
Yeah, but people are sick of the bullshit in here. It is a genocide. You are abetting it,
another question.
And you are risking nuclear war in Ukraine.
Plenty of other places to give.
Wow, guys. Okay, so a little bit of a pointed question there. You saw Matthew Miller's response. Got under his skin a little bit, but yeah, we are pumping a lot of money, guys. A lot of money to a lot of places. And this is such an insane thing. It's not that I don't sympathize with Ukrainians. It's not that I don't sympathize with Israelis. It's not that I don't sympathize with these illegal migrants that are trying to better their lives and their families and trying to move to a safer area. It's not that I don't sympathize with any of this. It's just that we as Americans are paying the government to take care of us. Right? I'm a U.S. citizen. I pay taxes every year so that my country, the United States of America, will protect and take care of me and my interests. That's why we pay taxes. And yet America is taking care of everybody else and they're ignoring me. And that is what Americans are so frustrated by in this current climate, is that we are putting so much money, we are sending so much money out. The deficit is growing it's absolutely insane. If we would just rein in some of the spending that we're doing on other countries, other places, and we would just spend it on our country. Come on, guys. That's what I think the American people are so irritated by, and that's why a lot of people want to see Donald Trump president again in 2024. But guys, I want to know what y'all think. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what your thoughts are on all this. I hope y'all enjoyed this first premiere episode on the new channel. Guys, I'm just super excited. I'm going to be trying to pump out a video for y'all every day. So tune in, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you enjoy content like this. Leave a like. I appreciate all the support, all the love. And I'll see you again tomorrow with another video. Y'all take it easy and peace.